Yesterday, a supporter and practitioner of Palestinianism murdered two people in Manchester for being Jewish and injured three others. We talked about that on yesterday's show. While we were talking about it, other pro-Palestinians took to the streets to supposedly protest, but really we know what they were doing. They were doing what they had done before. They were doing what they did on October 7th. They were out on the streets celebrating another successful act of Palestinianism, another successful murder of Jews for being Jews. Uh, the reaction is what you would expect it to be. There's the people who are straight up saying that this is what they're doing. There are people who are pretending otherwise. There was a pretense that this is a protest about the mistreatment of the Hamas-sponsored flotilla, the activists on which were all arrested by Israel and apparently are going to be uh, sent on their own private plane, paid for by Israel, back to Europe, with not even being held, more than a day or two, however long it takes to fuel that jet. So, yeah, we are seeing what we expect to see. We're going to talk about some of the more, um, more obvious or more straightforward occasions over the past few hours of these people saying the now loud part out louder. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel, your first reaction before we go to some of what one of these people said.
I mean, just quickly about the flotilla. So another one has been sent out from Italy. So they are continuing with this, which shows that unless Israel takes some drastic action, saying no, this is not an acceptable thing to do, they will keep trying to do so. Also, of course, it was found out that there was no aid on that convoy, so another thing I've seen, apparently Greta has posted a video of her saying something like, "Oh, I was kidnapped by the idea they're taking me," and she was able to post that on the internet. And well, take from the whatever you want. Now, when it comes about both this terrorist attack and then the reaction, I mean the fact that people are trying to act as if there is no connection, as like, oh yeah, we've been basically calling for the destruction of the Israeli state. There's been a rise of anti-Semitism. There's been a outward anti-Jewish rhetoric on these protests. Jewish people are told to basically, don't go out of your house when these people are going around. But that's a normal thing. That's a normal state of affairs where certain kind of people shouldn't go outside because some people are protesting. And now, yeah, it's a should it be a surprise that some Islamists decides to basically go attack a synagogue? We've seen the rise of anti-Jewish crimes. This is not even the first one in the UK. We've seen increasingly more. Some of them sort of, I don't know what you want to call them, grassroots, that basically just some random people decide to do so. We've seen even state-sponsored things when it comes to, I mean, the Israeli embassy in the UK. There was a planned attack on that. So we have that again and again. And the people who are doing this protest, I mean, if I was giving them some benefit of the doubt, which they absolutely do not deserve, I could say something like, do you not see how even if you say that you protesting the genocide doesn't have to do anything with the anti-Semitic crimes, don't you think you should step back at least for a day? But this is absolutely not this about. It's precisely because this has happened. They are still going to the streets. If I was to make a comparison, uh, in the past or last year there was a assassination attempt on our prime minister, and the opposition basically stopped doing their protest for I think about a week. Now, them doing the protest and the assassination attempt actually didn't have any connection at all. Yet they understood, okay, it's a bad message to send out that when this terrible crime happens, now we still go protest with something that is very closely connected to the group that was affected. So the fact that they purposely still do these protests should tell you a lot.
Yeah, there can't be a benefit of the doubt when there is no doubt. But let's just see what these people actually say in their own words. So, the Telegraph had a story about this yesterday. I'm reading from that story. And usually we avoid naming these people. Since this person gave her name to the Telegraph, I think it's important. Also, any single gentleman in the audience might want to look her up if I'm guessing she's also single. Fiona Smith, 42, told the Telegraph, quote, "I don't give a fuck about the Jewish community right now. I thought about it and I'm sorry about what happened, but the whole story and why we're here is because of what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday again is the people going into Israel to attack Israel were apprehended and then are being sent back home. That is what this person has a problem with. The fact that Jews are being murdered for being Jews is, in her words, something that she doesn't give a fuck about. And this is again, some of them really say what they mean, but all of them mean that there is no person, and we said this yesterday, there is no person you will see taking to the streets, waving a PLO flag or Palestinian flag as they call it, who was not happy, was not celebrating when this happened yesterday. This is what they want. They were chanting the night before because they took to the streets the night before when the flotilla people were arrested. They were chanting again what they have chanted many times before, which is globalize the Intifada. What can globalize the Intifada possibly mean? It doesn't mean globalize these protests because that has already been done and they are violent. They know what Intifada means. They know what globalize the Intifada means. Yesterday's attack in Manchester was a part of the Intifada being globalized. Globalize the Intifada means kill Jews not just in Israel, but wherever they are. So yesterday, the day before yesterday, they went to demand what happened yesterday in Manchester, and they got what they wanted and took to the streets yesterday to celebrate it. I want to just quickly get to something else. There's a few things we're going to get to, but one of the things is um, this attacker's father was celebrating publicly on social media on October 7th, as were the people who are now demanding that Israel pay for what they did to the flotilla people. So this is from his father on October 7th, translated by the Telegraph. This is a quote. The scenes broadcast by the Al-Aqsa Martyrs brigades of a group of fighters storming an occupation army camp with simple means, balloons and motorcycles, prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Israel will not remain. Men like these prove they are God's men on earth, and regardless of who leads them, this is the true compass for men, confident of their victory, even if their means are limited. Blah blah blah. He keeps going, but yeah, so that is the father, a person who emigrated into the UK from Syria. By the way, this father was a doctor who lived in a council estate. So that's if you want uh, sort of a Pictionary definition of what's wrong with Britain, I think this guy is probably it. And viewers of this channel know that we are more pro-immigration than anybody, certainly in the political spectrum in the UK. Uh, but there is an actual war that needs to be considered within that, and somebody like this should not have been allowed into the country and should have been kicked out at some point. But yeah, he is a doctor. He is a doctor who's getting housing from the government, taxpayer funded housing, and his son was a teacher. So keep that in mind as well when you hear, of course, it's the whole Israel's bombing schools and hospitals is a joke because schools are not operational. They're just buildings where people used to be taught to kill Jews and now house terrorists. And hospitals are sometimes operational, but are also used in order to plan and carry out the killing of Jews. But when there are doctors there, it's this kind of doctor. It's a doctor who wants the extermination of the Jews. There are many of them in the UK, by the way, but there are only that kind of doctors in Gaza. They all have to be Hamas approved, and they are Hamas approved. Yeah, Daniel.
Well, first about that woman who spoke to the Telegraph and her comment. I mean, she just gave a great idea to these Islamists, right? If you are going to kill Jews, do it on the day that some other so-called pro-Palestinian groups are doing something bad, so now they do not have to care about you, right? It's the flotilla that was heading for Gaza, that wasn't something good. That wasn't anything positive. Or the fact that Israel, stopped it wasn't something negative. That flotilla was going to breach the blockade. Blockade is there for a reason, and it's the fact that Hamas has been getting arms and weapons from outside. A terrorist organization has been getting armed from the outside, and Israel wanted to prevent that. So that was stopped. This breach was stopped. And because that happened, now what, you have no sympathy for Jews that have been killed because some other Jews are defending themselves? Those other Jews didn't die, so I'm not gonna care for these Jews that were murdered. It's absolutely. I mean, talking about the culture and going into immigration, something that is prevalent in Muslim community pretty much around the world is anti-Semitism. It's very common when even a family like talks to each other, that basically like this sort of generic anti-Semitism, similar or not as similar, it's a little bit different. But when you go to some other backward cultures, I mean, I live in rural Eastern Europe, a lot of racist people, a lot of that has to do with ignorance. Now, that is a problem, but it becomes a much bigger problem when it starts getting accepted. The fact is, with the racism that is, let's say, here on national politics, if something happens to a minority group or something, it's not like it will be celebrated or tolerated. In the UK, when an anti-Semitic crime happens, it is actually accepted. People are sort of okay. It reminds me, I'm not sure if you've ever seen The Boys, but a scene with the Homelander where he kills a child and he gets clapped for it, and he goes like, "Oh, okay, all right." He realizes that this is actually okay. And this is what a lot of Islamists are realizing. They have been always anti-Semitic. Again, it's a choice and it's a sort of cultural thing. But now they are being anti-Semitic. They are committing crimes because of it, and they are starting to see, oh, okay, we do not have to hide even anti-Semitism, even in Western countries. We can just show it, and nobody will go against it.
Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. WUB mentions, yeah, another name that we usually wouldn't name, but the fact is the name of this terrorist is Jihad. And that's what the aforementioned father chose to name his kid. WUB says the parents decided. With Muslims, I'm pretty sure it's not the parents decided, it's the father decided, and the mother was beaten up just because why not? But yeah, it's we wouldn't really struggle with understanding the problem if German parents named their kid Mein Kampf. But when Muslims name their kid Jihad, which literally means the same thing, uh, then yeah, we're okay with it because we're not allowed to question. I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday because we there was this tweet by the Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying that he's going to send police assets to synagogues, which was so absolutely despicable of him. We're going to send them because we know Jews are under attack, and we're not going to do anything about it except maybe hope that we're around those same Jews that attackers come at a certain time, or in other ways, in other words, attackers will see where the police is and will go to other Jews. No, if you want to fight terrorism, you send the police to the mosques. That is where this problem is coming from. And yeah, not all mosques, I assume. I'm not certain about that. Potentially not all mosques, but go see what they're preaching, see who's acting on what they're preaching. The people who follow Islam consistently are people like Jihad, who met his 72 virgins yesterday. Um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's send police to synagogues to protect the Jews. Maybe we should just so Jewish people can feel safe and so we know where everybody is. Maybe we could like put a number on every single one of them. And since there is a problem of anti-Semitism, maybe Jews shouldn't marry outside of the religion. So we should annul all marriages that are between Jewish people and non-Jewish people. I mean, yeah, again, what the hell is this kind of obviously I'm overreacting and doing a Nazi comparisons. But what kind of like you say, messages is sending that oh yeah, there is a anti-Semitism happening, so let's increase the police presence in Jewish communities instead of looking at okay, where is the crime actually coming from and what is encouraging this crime. I mean, you never can solve an issue if you're just treating a symptom. It's, oh, okay, anti Semitic crime will happen. We'll try to stop it somehow instead of focusing on, okay, what is driving this? Like, this is clear in numbers. The rise of anti Semitism around the world is absolutely clear. Yet, the leaders, the politicians, are absolutely refusing. Not only refusing to do something about it, they are encouraging it. Keir Starmer has recognize the Palestinian state, a reward for every single person who's on the streets. I'm sure this guy this murderer, this terrorist who attacked the synagogue, I'm sure he celebrated the recognition of the Palestinian state. I'm
yeah,
not,
and
I don't think he watched it and he was like, oh, okay, I'll calm down. Now I'll actually think more about what to do.
I don't remember if it was on a show, but somebody said to me, "You keep saying we live in 1930s Germany," and I said, "No, it's late 1920s Germany is where I think we are." I do think there's still, uh, unlikely, but a possibility of things not going as badly as they seem to be going. But remember, um, yesterday's condemnation of what happened is when people at the official level are okay with Jews. They're okay with Jews when Jews get murdered. They condemn the murder and then they move on. I believe the British government was still what's his name? The previous prime minister. I forget them as
Rishi
almost as quickly
Sunak.
as I should. Yeah, Rishi was um, stopped the funding to UNRWA right after it first came out, and then quickly brought it back when Israel did something, or the Hamas said that Israel did something that they didn't like. So, this condemnation is one thing. Maybe there will be more cops around synagogues. Of course, they're not going to send them to mosques, but maybe there'll be cops for a little bit around synagogues. But no, ultimately, this they know as high up as you go, they know what's going on, and they're letting it happen. Thank you, Unusual AI, for another unusually high super chat. That is very, very much appreciated. Um, okay, I wanna and Unusual AI doesn't say anything but sends heart emojis with an Israeli flag between them. I wanna go to the first clip of Zach Polanski. There's a couple of clips I want to show. The Zach Polanski one is well, they're both special. Let's start with the Zach Polanski. For people who don't know, and I assume that's the majority of our audience, is the leader of the Green Party. The Green Party, like many parties that are not Labor and the Conservatives doing well in the polls, getting 10% at the moment, which is much higher than what they usually get. Let's listen to him from yesterday.
I think it's really problematic if someone is trying to
Yeah.
weaponize the attack that happened yesterday to try and silence protest in this country against the genocide. Again, they're separate issues. Of course, we should always look to be respectful, but we also need to be clear what this government is doing. They are selling arms to Israel. They are sharing intelligence for an ongoing genocide. So I'm less concerned about the policing of language and civility, and I'm more concerned about the actual bombs that are landing on people. Of course, I would make a call to everyone to be sensitive to the Jewish community, to recognize what's happening. But again, speaking as a member of the Jewish community,
All
I
right,
wouldn't
that's
want
enough. Yeah,
anyone
I
to
just
feel like they
wanted
had
we had to get to that part because every pro-extermination of the Jews Jew has to say as a Jew, otherwise it's as if he is advocating for the extermination of the Jews, which he is. We have to separate the issues. How do we have to separate the issue of Jews being murdered for being Jews and people going out right next to it and protesting against the Jewish state defending itself from people who want to murder Jews for being Jews? The only way you intentionally or demand the separation of that is if you want people, if you want to keep pretending that you're not doing what you're doing. Zach Polanski, we know what you're doing, and we will be calling you and other people out on it daily.
Yeah, in such a disgusting framing, nobody's shutting down protests. What was asked is a little bit of consideration and to not to do protests for one day, to show some kind of uh, I don't know what do you want to call it, olive branch to the Jewish community that no, okay, it's not every Jew. We are not going after every Jew. We just have problem with this with Netanyahu regime or whatever. No, absolutely. What they are, what he said, and yeah, I mean, yeah, when you say Green Party is at 10%, that fills me with a lot of optimism about the British future. But thankfully, or to some extent, unfortunately, the election is far, so hopefully they'll fall before that, and there will be a better alternative. But yeah, This is not ignorance. He knows what he's doing, and he absolutely knows what kind of message it is sending when you continue with these protests, um, like right after this attack or the day of this attack. Again, nobody has ever shut down these protests or done anything to so. They have been allowed to go on again and again, calling for a destruction of a free state. Yet, as you say, it's never good enough because for those people, they're not looking for some compromise. They are not looking for some dialogue or willingness to talk. No, they simply want the destruction of the Israeli state, and nothing short of that will satisfy them. No amount of Israel stopping the flotilla and sending those people home on nice jets, no amount of sending aid to Gaza, no amount of ceasefires, no amount of willingness to negotiate Israel can offer that will be enough to satisfy these people. Only the complete destruction of the Israeli state. Listen to their protests. I understand that when you have like slogans, they have to be short and punchy, but saying from the river to the sea is calling for the destruction of the Israeli state. Calling free Palestine is calling for the destruction of the Israeli state. Not to mention, we've heard them also yelling, what was it? Yemen, Yemen, make us proud, turn another ship around. So celebrating terrorists attacking shipping that oftentimes did not even have to do anything with Israel.
Yeah, the PLO flags they're waving are probably coming from China and being attacked by those Yemenite ships. But anyway, we talk a lot about the relationship between what comes out of these people's mouth and that which is. So to see a bit more of that, let's go to what I think we can call the CTO of the pro-Palestine movement, Chief Truth Officer Owen Jones. Here is him confronting a pro-Israel Labor MP. Now, we're not going to show all of this. There is no such thing as a pro-Israel Labor MP. This guy is not pro-exterminating the Jews loudly enough. So, of course, Owen Jones goes after him. Let's hear that.
I do not think it crosses the bar.
How would you
with
describe
genocide.
how would you describe deliberately shooting children in the head and the chest?
I don't accept the G word being used even now,
Even
and
though,
nor does the British government.
even though a consensus of genocide scholars has said this is genocide.
The opinions of some people, not the opinion
All
of the
right,
British government.
that's all I
Well,
wanted.
who-
That is all I wanted. So, historically, when people wanted to kill the Jews, they came up with blood libels, and the intentionally killing children, intentionally shooting children in the head and chest is a blatant 100% lie. We don't have to say this for our audience. You all know that. Even the pro-Hamas trolls in the chat know that. But it is, it's the Jews, so we can say that about them, and that will then become the conversation. And yes, the reason I wanted to show just that bit is because this is from 2 or 3 days ago at the Labour Party conference. The "even after all the genocide scholars said so" bit by Owen Jones is months after that genocide scholar, what was the name of the organization, Daniel, if you remember off the top of your head, came out with a report, and then it came out that to become a genocide scholar in this organization, you had to pay $30 and sign up. And somebody, proved that point by signing up under the name Adolf Hitler. So, yeah, no genocide scholars, nobody who, defines the word genocide or uses the actual definition of the word genocide would ever argue that what Israel is doing is genocide. They would absolutely argue that Palestinianism, the entire cause, is genocidal and not as part of what they want, as the entire cause. But then again, since Owen Jones has dedicated his life to that cause, he can get away with this. Look, everything these people say, from Zach Polanski to Owen Jones, it's all a verbal retweet of what other pro-Palestinian people say. None of it is original. It's all repetitive, but it doesn't need to be original. It just needs to be retweeted. It just needs to be repeated in whatever platform, in whatever way you can repeat it, and people will then use it and say, look, senior journalists, genocide scholars, UN experts all agree. Yes, every single person who wants the Jews to be exterminated will repeat the same thing, and then you can give them the titles that you give them to prove how this is what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. Again, look at the shifting standard, right? Originally, it was the ICJ is what matters. Then suddenly, okay, this association, I think, what is it? The International Association of Genocide Scholars. Okay, nobody ever heard about them before. Now, I know they were somewhat relevant, but realistically, nobody ever heard about them before. Oh, they've said so. So now this is the standard. Now everybody agrees that this is. Then some UN committee or whatever came up, not the UN itself, but some sub-branch of UN came up and said they declared it's a genocide. Okay, so now this is what matters. When it comes to, and this is the biggest problem with international law, the fact that there is no authority that we can go to. If we are talking about the US law, if I say the Supreme Court made a decision, the conversation basically ends. That's the most beyond the constitution. That's the body that decides on what is law. When you go to who is perpetrating genocide, we basically jump to whoever is saying what we want right now, and that is accepted. No, that's not how law, that's not how objectivity works. But we've seen more and more the degradation of law, as we'll also see on the reality show, where some people accept that maybe even different systems are basically the same.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you think that the right the political right is what's going to save civilization. You're not listening to the political right, but if you're listening to this show, hopefully you will listen to the reality show as well, where we will talk about Tucker Carlson actually advocating for Sharia law. That's not clickbait. We will show that clip. Yeah, there's more to say about this, but we're out of time. But we are here every day, so I'm sure we'll be back. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks everybody for watching. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes.